It's Total Information AM Saturday on KMOX.
Welcome back to Total Information AM, and we sometimes hear talk of cults, of people being held against their will in a variety of ways, or being held when they don't even realize it's against their will. Joined right now by Patricia Walsh Chadwick. She has written a fascinating memoir about this. She's been through it herself. It's called Little Sister, a memoir, published by Post Hill Press. And Patricia, welcome to KMOX.
Thank you very much.
It's hard to know where to start on a subject like this. If you could just give me a thumbnail of your story and how you grew up in the cult of St. Benedict Center and how you eventually left.
Well, I was in fact born into it, to be truthful. There were a large number, 60-odd grown-ups, including 12 married couples, and they agreed to form this religious organization. The backstory for that is, even more complicated. So just leave it at the fact that they decided to, have this religious organization, and that was, frankly, my parents' desire and wish in one way, but it started off in a very kind of thoughtful and caring way, and the parents were living in their own little apartments with their children, and I was the only child at the start, and within 6 years, I had 4 siblings. There were 5 of us in total, and we were a family that, lived our family life, but then had also this communal activity where we would have Mass every day and have our meals all together. And then little by little, the founders of the organization, the priest, the Catholic priest, and the woman that was unrelated to him in any way other than that she was also a leader, started to introduce these rules. And the first was that the children, that we all started wearing kind of religious garb. And then secondly, that the children, once they were 3 years old, would be taken away from their parents and raised by what were called angels. And shortly after that, so I was 6 when that happened, and then shortly after that, forcing my parents into taking vows of celibacy. And all of a sudden we had morphed, if that's the right word, from being a religious community into a cult-like environment in which the social norms were being completely violated, all in the name of this was the best way to serve God.
And this went on until you were 17 years old, correct?
That is correct. We were educated totally within the confines. We had no television. I had never seen a television show or gone to any movies on the outside or been schooled. We had our own school. We were totally self-sufficient. And I was being trained to actually be dedicated to God for my life, which meant that I would become a nun in this community. And when I was about 16, I took the first step. But simultaneously, since in my own mind, this was not the life I wanted to lead, very innocently, I fell into a series of crushes, as any girl might when she's in her teenage years. And that was considered really an indication that I was not of the quality that they wanted in a religious life. And so I was simply kicked out at the age of 17. I was allowed to finish my senior year of high school, and then literally within an hour, I was gone with no ability to say goodbye to anyone.
So you're 17 years old. You've been long removed from your parents. You have had no access to the outside world. Basic American culture that most kids know is a foreign language to you, and you're suddenly out on the street. Where were you? Where did you go? What did you do? What are you thinking?
Well, I think it's important to say while I was separated from my parents continued to live there, so I saw them. I simply was not allowed to speak to them. And when I was kicked out, I had actually already been accepted at a couple of colleges, not because they ever had any intention of sending me there or allowing me to go there, but because they needed to prove that the school that they were running could be accredited by the state of Massachusetts. And when I got into both Bates, where my father had gone, and Vassar, that rather assured them that they would be accredited. But then I was forced to say, no, I would not be going. So I was allowed to attend a secretarial school. And the moment I finished that, and that only took a few months, I then had to find my own job, and I set up my own housekeeping, as it were, in a room at the YWCA.
And how did you, as you got into this, you're out of this group now, you're trying to find your way. What were the things that were just foreign to you as you tried to go through daily life?
Well, in large measure, the most foreign thing to me as I got out was kind of the vocabulary and the way of life. I had never seen a television show because I was informed, we were informed that, this was the fastest way to get to hell. So when I did stay at my uncle and aunt's house for a few weeks that summer and watched, the most innocent shows like Red Skelton and, just cute shows, I was puzzled as to why those would be shows that would send one to hell. But the vocabulary was different. I had never heard a swear word. I had never even heard a slang word. And so I was very quiet for a while, thinking, oh, I better learn this language before I get myself in a peck of trouble. And then little by little, I became a receptionist at a brokerage firm and started to learn the language of finance, and then started putting myself through college. And eventually, it took 9 years, but I got my degree in economics. And by then, I was moving to New York and fully ensconced in the world of finance.
Very quickly, as we wrap up here, what do you want people to take from this book? What is the lesson people should take from this book?
Thank you for asking that, because it's very important. I do dedicate the book to my parents, which may seem a bit of a shock. But the fact of the matter is, throughout that whole environment, I always knew they loved me. They broke the rules in small ways to let me know that they loved me. So this is not a mommy dearest story. It is, in fact, a story of love. It is a story of a family that could not be broken. And that once we all got together again, there was no anger. There was no, why did this happen to me? We moved on as a family.
Patricia Walsh Chadwick, thank you so much for joining us here on KMOX. Once again, the book is Little Sister, a memoir. Thanks, Patricia.
Thank you so much.
Let's go Blues! The Blues are in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And where can you hear all the action and get the latest Blues news? On Y98 FM, KMOX.com, and your voice of the St. Louis Blues, KMOX.